Good Monday evening, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here at WCNC. Welcome to WCNC Plus as we get ready for our Weather Impact Show tonight. And happy first day of school to all our North Carolina districts, which started today. I know a lot of our South Carolina districts started over the last couple of weeks, but today was a big day. The biggest district in the state, Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. Wake County, I think, is number 2. I just said that. I think Wake is number 2 or 1. Are we 1 or 2, James?
I was going to say, are you just bragging right now?
I'm just saying because I always think like we're the biggest and Wake County is the second biggest. So, biggest district in the state because it is huge. And so first day of school, and it's rare. We had gorgeous conditions today for the first day of school. We'll start with the view. Our Mr. Sparky camera network, I mean, it's not often that the first day of school, and I was trying to find a graphic I did a couple years ago. I look back at the last 10 years, first day of school for CMS, pretty much, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, it's like 90 degrees plus. It's hot, it's humid, there's scattered storms. So today it was warm, it was 87, but it was very dry. And look at the sky out there. Just a beautiful view. So we actually have had some really nice weather, some high wispy clouds moving across the sky from time to time, really making for a beautiful Monday. And today is the warmest day of the week. So if you thought it was a little warm today for you even, just wait. It's going to get better because we had 2 cold fronts. Yes, 2 cold fronts moved through. You barely noticed the one yesterday, though it did kick off a few isolated showers and storms, a pretty beefy one that moved through parts of Alexander and Iredell counties for a while. But that second front came through this morning. It was a dry front. Dry front usually means no rain associated with it, but that would actually apply to the fact that it brought dry air in as well because this was a dew point boundary. It brought very dry air. So there's a look at the high today, 87 and 70. The averages are 88 and 68. So that's pretty much a wash. That's pretty close to normal, if not slightly above. That is going to change over the next couple of days. Current temperatures as of 6:32 p.m., still 85.
Wow.
I mean, still warm, but it's a dry heat. But look at Boone, 67, 65 in Jefferson. Tim's going to join me momentarily up there in Greensboro. He's 80 right now. So they're very comfortable. But as I mentioned, this is the story. Dew point, dew point, dew point. Tim and I joked about Team Dew Point. This is why we're Team Dew Point. If you look at one parameter for how it feels outside, temperature's number 1. Number 2 should be the dew point temperature. Why? Because when dew points are in the 50s or lower, it feels comfortable. When it's 60 or above, it's humid. When it's 70 and above, that is sauna. That is air you can wear. So the fact that it's August 25th and the dew point is 62, that's amazing. And we have dew points in the 40s and 50s moving down from the north. So tonight, as we go through the evening, those temperatures fall from the 80s. The sunsets, by the way, this is something else. Yesterday was our last 8 p.m. sunset until April 20th.
Boo.
Yeah, so you missed that yesterday. I posted that on social, and I didn't mention it today because that's kind of depressing for some folks. But yeah, we had our last 8 p.m. sunset or later until April. Hard to believe that happens in August, but yeah, the heating's a little loaded back towards the back end of summer, even though the sun starts going down early. But yeah, the sun sets around 7:59 tonight. So once it goes down, temperatures fall into the 70s. And tomorrow morning, low to mid 60s. We will see a few neighborhoods maybe in the 50s. I think Greensboro will be one of those places close to 50s. But Salisbury, Statesville, Hickory, 58, 57, 49 in Boone, 49. I can't wait to see what the low is going to be at Beach Mountain tomorrow morning. Could see some low 40s. And then during the day tomorrow, with dry air and sunny skies, low 80s. I have to laugh because so many people on social media are posting about this cool down, about sweater weather and autumn preview. I don't know about you, James, but I don't wear a sweater when it's 82 outside. That is still pretty warm.
So I shouldn't have the words fall-like temperatures on the way at the bottom of the screen?
I mean, it is fall-like, because I think that's a better example, but it's not like October, right? This is, in complete transparency, this would be the normal high for like September 20th. So it's pretty much a month ahead of schedule.
Is that better? Shrug-like temperatures on the way?
Pretty close, but it's not sweater weather, because honestly, I don't know anybody who wears a sweater when it's 80 degrees outside. But if you're gonna notice this cool down, it's probably gonna be in the mornings, because when the sun is down and when you're in the shade, even because the air is so dry, your sweating actually works. And what I mean by actually works, when it's super hot and humid in the summer and you sweat, there's no room for the evaporation to occur. So you just sweat more and you get that sticky kind of, that's why we jokingly call it the air you can wear, because it feels like a sauna. You just never stop getting sweaty. But when the air is dry like this, when you sweat, it actually evaporates. It makes you feel cooler, but it also keeps you dry feeling. So if you're going to the pool, which the pool temperature, the water is going to be warmer than the air temperature this week, or the lake going into Labor Day weekend, you're going to be comfortable in the water, but when you get out, you might feel a little chilly because evaporation is going to be exaggerated because of these low dew points. And look at this, Wednesday night into Thursday morning, we could see 40s for dew points, even maybe upper 30s. That is unheard of in August. So that is why it feels so great. So look at that stretch of weather there. Those are dew point temperatures, by the way. I posted this earlier and people thought those were air temperatures and we're like, it's too early for that. No, this is the dew point temperature. So it will still be in the 80s for highs, lows in the 50s and 60s, but the dew points could be in the 40s. So certainly very comfortable. And rain chances. So we had so much rain in August, 7.11 inches so far. Most of that fell in the first 2 weeks. We've been somewhat drier since, and this week's very dry. So believe it or not, all that rain doesn't matter if you dry out for 2 weeks. You're actually going to have to do some watering here because your plants are still sucking down about 1 inch of water per week. And because it hasn't rained in a week, you're going to need some moisture out there. The only benefit is that we have dry air and cool conditions, so we're not putting the heat stress on top of that with the dryness. Look at that stretch of weather. Next 7 days, temperatures in the low 80s. So, yeah, is that fall-like? Yeah, mid-September, because that's meteorological fall, but it's not really mid-October yet. Most of these temperatures are pretty close to where we were early in the month. The difference is now the average high is like 87, 88. So by the end of the month, actually, the average high is 87. So earlier in the month, the average high was 90. So that was a big difference. Now it feels cooler. So the natural question, and I'm sure we probably have we gotten this one via text? I don't think we have. Did we have our last 90-degree day? I think Tim mentioned this last week, and he said yes. I think for Greensboro, they might be done. But for us in Charlotte, we're always a little warmer. So our average last 90-degree day is September 12th. That's over 147 years of record keeping, the average date. Now, the last 5 years, last year, it was September 22nd, September 7th, September 22nd, September 18th, September 11th. So all of those were in September. But there's always those outliers, right? Back in the year of 1954, which was a hot year in the Charlotte area in the Carolinas, we had, I think, 6 days above 90 that month of October, and the latest was October 13th. But that's pretty rare. Only 15 times has it been 90 plus in October. So typically the last of the 90s happen somewhere in early to mid-September. This year, it might be August. I really do think there's an outside chance we might be done with the 90s, because when I look at the long-range pattern, and this gets us through September 4th, by the way, I don't see any temperatures even approaching 90. The highest, I think, is mid-80s. So the fact that we can get to September 4th without it being 90 probably bodes well that it's going to be harder and harder to get that warm. A warm day now in September is going to be in the upper 80s because the averages start falling. From the beginning of the month, it's 87. By the end of the month, the average high is in the 70s, upper 70s. So 90 in September, especially the later you get, is somewhat rare. So I do think, and when we look at the forecast, you're going to notice, I do think we are kind of almost done with some of the 90-degree weather. Let's take a quick look at that 7-day forecast. I don't know why I was showing the future cast. That was weird, kind of jumped there. I was going to show you that, but there's not much to show you there. The tropics are pretty quiet as well, even though we have Fernand out there. So let's look at the 7-day forecast. 82, 80, 81, 83, 83. I mean, that's great. I mean, I love that stretch of weather. In the morning lows, upper 50s to near 60. So the mornings will be super comfortable. And let's face it, after the July we had and the June, my power bill is going to love this stretch of weather. That was the highest power bill I've ever had in the month of July. That was partly because it was the second hottest July all time, but it also was our energy prices are going through the roof. That's a whole nother show. But electricity's been really expensive this year. And you look at the 10-day forecast, nothing there approaching 90 degrees. So I am very confident we're going to at least have a chance to have our last 90-degree day already happen. And that would have been in August, which is crazy to think. So Tim Buckley's going to join me here in a minute. We're going to talk more about the cool weather. We're also going to talk about this crazy earthquake swarm down in South Carolina, and we're going to talk about Katrina, because this is a big week for Katrina, because this is the 20th anniversary, and I have some direct ties to Katrina. So every day we're going to talk a little bit about Katrina on this date, and then at the end of the week when landfall occurs, we're going to have a whole show about it. So Tim, I saw you had the graphic all ready to go. You guys are done with 90s, right?
Well, what I just heard is that you're guaranteeing there's no way there's any more 90-degree days.
No, that's the way every viewer just heard it too.
Brad said,
Yes.
it's possible we could have no more. It's certainly a possibility. We've practically, Brad, up here, had no 90s in all of August.
That's crazy.
We've only had one 90-degree day the entire month of August here. I believe that stat is also relevant for Raleigh, which is even crazier. The fact that they've only had one of those two.
Hot. Yeah, that's wild.
It usually is.
Yeah.
So for any Piedmont Triad viewers or anyone who likes these sort of stats, right now, there have only been 2 Augusts in Greensboro history where there's been no 90s, so we can't touch those. But we're number 3 on the list. There's only a couple others that only had one 90-degree day, and happy to guarantee that we won't hit 90 the rest of August. We'll see what September has to say about that. But like you were saying in your forecast, it doesn't look very hot. It doesn't look overly warm, and it just gets harder to do. Our average last one up here is around September 10th.
Wow. So, yeah, just a couple days before ours. So now you had me curious. Now I'm going to look up Charlotte, like the least number of 90-degree days. So I'm actually going to pull this up in real time. So let's look. This year we've had 6, which would be the least amount since 2014.
What?
Wow. That
What?
that blows my mind.
My air conditioner also begs to differ.
Yeah, but that's August, by the way. And I will tell you this. I got in an interesting Facebook conversation, Tim, because a lot of people have gotten their July power bills in August, and they assume that it was their August bill. But the way the billing works, you're always paying for the prior month. And so your bill in August probably seems super high, but you're paying for what you used in July. So everyone thinks, wow, it's been so cool in August. Why is my bill so high? Well, it wasn't because of the weather in August. It was because of that crazy hot July.
Well, we should expect some good bills, though, because to me, I'm always excited for September, October. They're pretty cheap months around here because the weather's usually so comfortable. This year, you might have a nice lower bill for the month of August, too, which
would be
is
nice.
kind of we're getting away with something.
So are you like me? I like to try to go as long as possible without heat or air in the fall. It's like this little contest I have, and I think my family hates me for it, but I try to just use my windows as my thermostat. And so it's like in the spring, you try to wait as long as possible to turn the air conditioner on. It's a little easier in the fall because the air is typically drier and we don't have pollen to deal with. That's always the problem in the spring is like you end up turning the air on early because there's so much pollen. But I agree with you. I love this time of year because you kind of get in that sweet spot where you don't need the heat or air. You can kind of just open and close the windows.
Absolutely. I'm definitely that way when it comes to the heat. I'm not going to sweat in my own house. So I'm going to turn the air conditioner on if I need to. But when it comes to the heat in the fall, we kind of do that too at our place, Brad. We do cheat, though. There's a gas fireplace that could kind of be, you're not turning on the whole house heat, but maybe take the edge off a little bit if the windows open was too much.
I want to know if they're running the air conditioner
ways from
at your
that.
house, Brad, while you're at work.
Oh, that's true. Well, I have control of the thermostat remotely, so even if they
do.
No, but I'm with you. It's just my bill was crazy
It's
in
on the
July.
phone.
Yeah, so I am super excited to see cooler weather in August. If there's one benefit of all that rain and cloud cover, it's we needed a break, because it was that July and really June, to be honest with you, was crazy. And I think what's going to be wild about this summer, Tim, and I'm already seeing people think that this summer's been cool because of the August, but we forget how hot it was in June and July. And those are going to really skew the summer stats compared to what it was in August.
Yeah, there's definitely been, it's kind of been a summer of extremes in that way. There's been the really hot stuff, the really wet stuff from time to time, the really cloudy stuff in the last couple of weeks as well. We're still running warmer than average for the summer up here. It looks like 15th warmest, so nothing too crazy. But we're just balancing out and kind of trading months on and off. So kind of a weird summer in a bunch of ways. It's always different, but this is unlike any summer I can really remember. And just to speak of this cool down this week, I'm kind of getting deja vu to a couple weeks ago when we were talking about that long, extended, comfortable period.
Yeah.
Well, we're doing it again, and just in a different way. So it's strange.
Yeah, you tend to get sometimes you get that first cold front towards the end of August, but you're right, it's usually a quick hitter, and then it's warming right back up. Yeah, I just had to glance too. Even with this cool down, we're at the fifth hottest summer on record with 2015. But I'm curious how far we'll move down the list with the next week or so. With the cool conditions. Right now we're tied with 3 other years, 2015 and 1987, which were really hot summers overall. And then you look down the list, you got to get down. 2024, which was last year, was number 10. So there's a chance we could be very close to last year's number. Which you'll be curious to see if that actually ends up happening, Tim. So I'm with you. I'm kind of glad that we're seeing the cool down now. I was laughing with James here. All these people posting sweater weather. I don't know many people that wear sweaters when it's still 80 degrees out. So I'm not ready to go there, Tim. But I'm ready to say the mornings are going to be very comfortable, in the evenings in particular, because of how dry the air is. And I think that's the thing we always love.
Yeah.
As Team Dew Point members, we love those lower dew points.
Absolutely. And this is a good educational opportunity that, even though the temperature is going to be 80, it's still going to feel really good to you.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with the humidity and not so much the air temperature. But they're definitely going to sell a lot of those fall coffees this week. There's no way around it. People are going to get that different feel. And, it's going to feel like football. And we have that coming up this week as well. So
I can't wait.
It's nice to see.
You know me, I'm super excited what's going to happen Saturday at the Shoe. So I'm like, I'm super excited for that game. But you're right, it is interesting. It's all about perspective. I think the first 80-degree day at the end of summer is different than the first 80-degree day in the spring. 80-degree day in the spring, people got bathing suits on. They're on the lake. They're going to the pool. There'll be people with jackets on when it's 80 degrees here in the fall, just because they're so used to all the heat all summer.
You're going to have a lot of sweatshirts, a lot of hoodies, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I stepped on Tim. That's my fault. I'm a bad producer. John wants to know how often the last 90-degree temperature has been in August.
Ooh. All right, so now you're going to make me do research. Actually, I did see one that wasn't too long ago. So we do first and last days of high temperatures of 90. We gotta do this at the beginning of the year. So we're gonna do this in real time.
We're all watching your screen now.
I know. So real time. So we're gonna go most recent. The last time it happened in August. Holy cow! Got to go back to 2009. 2009, the last 90-degree day was on August 27th. So that's pretty wild. Yeah, that's a good question, John. Great question there. So that's for us, Tim. What about you?
It's a lot less rare up here. Again, that magical ride up I-85 can do some wonders. Believe it or not, last year, our last 90-degree day was August 30th.
Oh,
that was last year. We also did that in 2022 and 2021. So it has happened a couple more times more recently up this way. But again, usually you'd expect September. I remember very vividly, though, that mid-90s heat wave we had the first couple of days of October.
I remember that
was, I
too.
guess, 2019, 2018.
Yes, 2019 and 2019 I remember because we went on a fall camping trip with my kids for Scouts, and you'd think, October, it's going to be great. We're camping. And we were in a tent, and it was in the upper 90s. And I was like, what happened? It was
brutal.
so hot. I'm like, I thought we'd probably need a heater for that. Instead, it was crazy hot. So that's the weather this week, Tim. We're enjoying that. But I wanted to transition to something that happened over the weekend. I don't know how much you were in tune with this, but my phone was blowing up. I'm one of those weird people. I love earthquakes and geology. I have my phone set for any quakes in the Carolinas. And normally when my phone goes off, I'm like, there's a small quake in western North Carolina. And I get up and my phone is like blowing up with like multiple earthquakes in South Carolina. We had a crazy earthquake swarm down in Greenwood County, South Carolina. Now, I want to show you because in the last 24 hours, we've had 3 quakes. In fact, since I earlier made this map, we had a new one happen.
Really?
So I'm actually going to highlight that right now because why we were just doing this. This one happened at 5:04 this evening. So we had a 1.7 in that area happen at 5:04. So 3 quakes just in the past 24 hours, and this is all right around a town called Cornatica. I think that's right, but I'm not sure. It's actually near Waterloo, and it's really near Lake Greenwood, if you know where Lake Greenwood is. But here's the more impressive part, and I'm actually going to have to do this. So in the last 10 days, I'm going to delete this and replot it because this is actually going to be more useful. So I apologize for doing this in real time, but we had some changes. We had a new quake happen. In the last 10 days in this area, Tim, there has been 19 earthquakes in Greenwood County, South Carolina, which makes it a legitimate earthquake swarm. So I don't know how much you heard about this, but this is like the 3rd earthquake swarm like this in the last 5 or 6 years in South Carolina, making it pretty odd.
It's very unusual, or at least surprising, and I think to the average person, we would say, well, we don't get earthquakes all that often, but we talk about them a couple times a year, and you certainly bring them up from time to time.
Yeah.
We see a lot of those small rumbles in the mountains quite often.
Yes.
I'll be honest, I don't know too much geologically about that particular part of South Carolina.
Yeah.
Is there a working theory on why these are happening in this cluster way right now?
So funny you should ask. The first swarm we saw in South Carolina, I had some interesting research on. So I want to show you real quickly. I'm actually going to turn off my team so I don't get some random message pop up on the screen here. Thanks, James. So we'll bring up the Southern Appalachian Seismic Zone. We know about that. You have a great graphic as well showing the kind of the threat. These are the areas in the southeast that produce earthquakes. But what's interesting is the South Carolina government has put out this great map showing all the faults in South Carolina. And if you notice, there's a lot of, not like what I call big plate boundaries. These are kind of interplate faults. They're kind of very shallow, but there are a ton of them in South Carolina. And what happens is if you get some kind of added stress, you're going to see a swarm of quakes. And what I find interesting, and I'm going to show you here in a minute, I'm going to show you a previous earthquake swarm on the screen there that happened near Jenkinsville. This is the one that spurred my attention, Tim, because this happened, I believe these mostly happened in 2020 and 22. There was a swarm of earthquakes around this reservoir, the Monticello Reservoir, and very similar to what's happened near Lake Greenwood. And lo and behold, the USGS, and I think the University of South Carolina, did research and found that this might be related to fluctuating water levels in the reservoir. So my curious theory, and I'm just saying this is my theory, based on what we saw over in Monticello, Tim, there was all that heavy rain early in the month, and there were big fluctuations in the lake levels of Lake Greenwood, and that fluctuation could put added stress on these minor faults and cause them to kind of produce earthquakes.
Because you're altering the pressure that's being added to the surface of the earth in that weight way. That's That's something that we wouldn't usually think of or notice, but that's pretty interesting here. What was the largest one of this swarm so far? Was it about a 3?
A 3.0, and that was the one that, it was one of the first ones, and that it happened at 12:30 in the morning, Friday night into Saturday morning. It woke a lot of people up, and then all of a sudden we had all these subsequent quakes around that same area, and most of them have been in the, like 1.8 to 2.2, but that 3.0 is definitely going to be felt for a pretty wide area. In some of the research that I looked at, just not in South Carolina, they first started noticing some of this out in the western part of the states, in California. When they went through that big drought, they noticed the removal of water from the reservoirs and just from the crust released so much stress that it actually helped spur some earthquakes out there. So there is some correlation to weight on the crust, whether it's snow, ice, or water, can actually trigger earthquakes. So I'm not 100% sure, Tim, that's the answer to why there's a swarm down there. But because Jenkinsville is just a little bit east of this area, it's in a very similar fault area, I am really curious to see if that's the case.
That's super interesting. I'm glad we cleared that up, and we'll see how many more there continue to be, I guess, in the next couple of days.
Yeah, my phone keeps lighting up like, we get another one. I'm like, oh, there's another one. Before we leave today, we said we'd talk about this a little bit. Kind of a big week. We just had the anniversary of Andrew, by the way, too, I think, which people forget about Hurricane Andrew back in 1992. But this week's kind of a big week because it's 20 years since Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast. And I think what's interesting is today, I wanted to bring up a graphic, Tim, and hopefully you can see this. So James, punch this up so Tim can see this. This was the forecast cone at the 5 o'clock advisory 20 years ago today. And what I find interesting, and I forgot about this, I was here in Charlotte. I don't know where you were, Tim, but back on this date, the cone was pretty big, by the way. The cone was huge back then. It was not as accurate as now. It actually had the storm coming up into the Western Carolinas at this point.
The cone wasn't big enough, as it turned out, right?
No.
Like there was a shift. I didn't realize this, Brad. You know, believe it or not, one of the things I remember about Hurricane Katrina, it was like my first day of college and my first day of meteorology school, and we were kind of just watching what was happening in New Orleans. So maybe it made a landfall on a Monday or something, or a Monday or morning. Tuesday, one of those days. And so anyway, that is a big shift within a narrow time frame, right? There's only a couple of days to adjust and get people ready. So at that point, did you know you were going to even go to New Orleans and help out?
I did not yet. And to your point, so this was the 5 o'clock advisory. And what I'm going to do, I hope I can do this correctly, I'm going to go forward to the next 24 hours. So we'll go ahead to the 5 p.m. advisory the next night. That was the shift in the track. It had taken it all the way west to basically the Mississippi-Alabama line. There was like a huge shift in this track in 24 hours. And what I found fascinating, I went back and read the discussion from that previous track, and one model, it was the GFDM at the time, had it actually mentioned it in the discussion that it was the furthest west track and had it go into New Orleans. But they put the track in the middle of the consensus because all the other guidance was too far east. So it was really interesting. There were hints even early on that it was going to go west, but this was a major shift, and you don't often see this in forecast cones, especially this close to the United States, Tim. So tomorrow at this time, this would have been the forecast for it to, and this is when people in New Orleans started getting a little worried, because not only did it shift west, that put it over warmer water for a longer period of time and meant intensification was a big issue. So we'll have more time to talk about this tomorrow and through the rest of the week, but the 20th anniversary of Katrina coming up on Friday, the 29th. We'll talk more about that, but stick around. We've got more Impact News coming up.